Hi, this is Bob Costas, and you're listening to the ML Sports Platter.
The ML Sports Platter, back with you all over the major platforms where you get podcasts on your smartphone device, 5-star reviews and feedback, download subscriptions. That's the name of the game. Be sure you do all of those for this podcast, and all under the umbrella of the Brawl Network, which you can get on Twitter at Network Brawl and me on Twitter at Mike L. Sports. We are presented by our great friends at Bryant and Stratton College, Welch & Company Jewelers, and Brian Comboy of Mass Mutual, New York State. Tax-efficient retirement planning today with Brian. Go ahead and visit him on LinkedIn and Facebook, and of course, advisors.massmutual.com. We are so pumped up about our financial future. And hey, whether you're sending a youngster off to college or you're having kids late in life, you want to get your retirement in order, let me tell you what, Brian Comboy has got the ideas and the innovation to help you out with your financial package later in life. Brian Comboy of Mass Mutual, New York State, is the official financial advisor of the ML Sports Platter. Super excited to bring on here in just a minute or two Leo Rautins, the Syracuse basketball great and TV analyst for TSN Sports, covering the NBA and the Toronto Raptors. But before I get to Leo, who is also on Twitter at Leo Rautins, just a couple of quick thoughts here on the Australian Open for Novak Djokovic. And look, here's what we're dealing with, and I've said this for a little while. Novak Djokovic and Rafa Nadal and Pete Sampras and Roger Federer, those are my four guys on the Mount Rushmore. Djokovic, simply based upon the winning and his influence down under. Impact on the game, I don't think he has as much as Federer. I think Federer is the most complete player of all time. The serve volley game, you can see 5 to 10 legends of tennis inside his game, and his international global impact is almost Kobe Bryant-esque in tennis. I know that's hard for people to believe, but if you don't follow the sport, you wouldn't know. Roger Federer's impact internationally is incomparable. And the closest guy there, I think, is probably Nadal. And maybe it is comparable a little bit. I guess Nadal's he's a global icon as well, but more in Spain and Europe and all the rest. I think Federer, when you watch those tennis specials of those guys traveling internationally, Federer grabs a hold of people a lot more. Obviously, if Nadal goes back to Spain, he's a Beatle, right? But I think the overall international, I think it's a leg up a little bit towards Roger. I think those three guys, along with Sampras, I think they're easily on the Mount Rushmore in the history of men's tennis. When you talk about impact, you talk about winning, you talk about the era. I think men's tennis is in a lot of trouble when the trio retires. But what's remarkable here, and what I'll spend a minute or two on before I bring Leo Rautins in, is this. Roger Federer is almost 40 years old. Djokovic is 33 years old. Nadal is 34 years old. And Nadal and Joker lately have had injuries. Federer's facing father time more gradually day to day. You're probably looking at Djokovic and Nadal having somewhere between 24 and 30 more Grand Slams to compete in. And right now, Djokovic has won, I think 18, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And he's won an astounding 9 Aussie Opens. He also has a winning record against Nadal, a winning record against Federer. His kingdom is the Aussie Open. Fed's is Wimbledon. And Nadal's is the clay and Roland Garros and the French Open. But Joker, has those records against those other two. Those guys don't have that against him. And Joker's beaten Nadal in Roland Garros, and he's won at Wimbledon over Fed. And so those things could be really, really, really broken down when you start to split hairs here in about 10 years, trying to figure out the rank of these guys. I think Pete Sampras is on the Mount Rushmore for his amazing, he's the greatest American player of all time, but his amazing impact on the game of tennis in terms of being an American player. I know a lot of people might think, well, it should be Agassi because he was a greater star, or McEnroe, or more of a pioneer, maybe a Rod Laver. I got Sampras there. I think Agassi, you could argue, for the second Mount Rushmore for sure, because he was probably, I think, You think about the modern commercials and the Nike and Just Do It and the long hair and the U.S. Open and dating supermodels and all the rest. I think Agassi was the truest, greatest superstar the sport has ever seen. Can't imagine what he would be like today with that exact charisma with social media. You could argue with his impact on the game, he's probably a Mount Rushmore number 2 guy. But I have these 4 guys. This is going to be very interesting to see, where we're at years down the line, 5, 8, 10, 12 years. We're starting to try and break down where these 4 guys rank. But I think right now, these 3 are immovable. I think you can kind of go back and forth on the Sampras thing with maybe a Laver and some other people. I don't think these 3 are touchable right now. And I know that they're playing in the modern era. I know that they're playing with the modern equipment, the rackets and the balls and all the rest. But the men's tour has never rolled out more players, and so therefore it should be deeper, which means it should be harder for them to win, a la Tiger Woods, and it's just not. Djokovic, Nadal, and Federer, for the most part, the last 20 years, they've been untouchable. I mean, Novak Djokovic has 18 Grand Slam wins, I mean, Rafael Nadal he's at 23, right? Let me just add this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, or no, he's got 20. I think Fed has 23. Let me add that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. He's got 20. And French's, he's got, it's just ridiculous, the domination on clay. I mean, he's got 13 of these things. 13 French Opens. We probably have never seen, Tiger Woods Masters, Nicklaus Masters, whoever else on any surface, any sport, Michael Phelps Olympic play, or at a specific event, a lot of guys in the Olympics have won a potpourri of different events, like Carl Lewis, Joyner Kersey, Phelps, etc. I don't know if we'll ever see anybody dominate in one single event or on a single surface like Rafa Nadal. And then you go with a Roger Federer, who I think is the greatest player of all time. He's going to turn 40 coming up this August. He's got 23, I believe, Grand Slams. When you add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 U.S. Opens, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Oh, no, he has 20 as well. I don't know why I was thinking one of these guys had 23. But it's 20 for each of these guys. And his kingdom, of course, is Wimbledon, where he's won 8. And Nadal has a greater record against Fed. I just think Fed's the more complete player. I understand head-to-head, maybe he isn't as great against a Nadal, but, that doesn't mean that all the other stuff doesn't look as good or better. 86 career titles for Nadal, 86 career titles and a 1,008 and 205 record. Do you throw those things in there as well? Federer's 1,242 wins, and he's got 103 career titles. Plenty of time for Nadal to catch him. The Joker is obviously got a record that's great too. He's 943 actually wins already. And 82 career titles. So it's, as far as like the Open era goes and where you are, you look at titles, finals, and win rate, they're all top 5. Connors is 1, Lendl is 3, Federer is 2, Nadal 4, Joker 5. That could very well change, right? Clearly it probably will. Matches record in terms of percentage, Nadal's number 1. He has the best match record of all time. Jimmy Connors matches 1. I think probably Connors is a Mount Rushmore 2. And I think Mount Rushmore 2 is harder to figure out. Because you got to deal with Bjorn Borg, you got to deal with Arthur Ashe, who I think impact-wise is the male version of Gibson on the women's side. So you got Borg, you got Lendl, you got McEnroe and Connors, all from the same era. You got Rod Laver, you got to deal with Stefan Edberg, you got Guillermo Vilas. There's some major player, Agassi. So that's a hard. David Fair. It's a hard one. The second one might be harder because then you really got to start splitting hairs. Where I don't think you have the slam dunks of Joker, Nadal, and Fed. So just some things to keep in mind as we move forward and see exactly where these guys will rank all time. Well, as mentioned here on the ML Sports Platter, brought to you by Empower Federal Credit Union, the Vince Aguirre Consulting Group, and Camillus Golf Club, it is an absolute delight to bring onto the program TV analyst for TSN Sports, a Syracuse sports legend on the basketball hardwood, NBA TV Canada and Sportsnet, also a contributor to those. He's a kid from Keele Street, and he is on Twitter at Leo Rautins. I've been waiting for this one for a long time. Leo, it's Mike Lindsley. What a treat, man. Good to talk with you again.
I'm great. I appreciate being on, and yeah, it's been a while. I can't even remember the last time I was in the Carrier Dome. So it's been a bit of a haul there.
Yeah, no doubt. So we're going to go a little bit across the board here in the world of basketball. Get a quick update on Andy as well. Why don't you give me? I mean, as I look at it, Syracuse getting blown out here early by Duke. But what do you think of this Syracuse team this season? Have you followed along a little bit?
To be honest, I haven't been able to watch as much as I'd like. The NBA schedule is crazy.
It's tough, man. Yeah,
it's every other night and mix in back to backs in the middle of all that, and so it's been a little wacky. But there's a lot of things I like about the Syracuse team. Obviously there some injuries and some other issues have faced them, and but when they're good, they're really good. They do a lot of good things. I think just finding that consistency has been a little bit of an issue for them, and as well as with the pandemic and some of the players getting sick and so forth, all that eventually takes its toll. So, but I'm optimistic. I'm hoping if they could win a few down the stretch here, maybe they could. I'm not a proponent of the tournament in light of the circumstances, but maybe they can get in.
Okay, let's get straight to the NBA here. I mean, it's been, I think, another success here so far with the league and how they've handled some things and some pretty great competition. You're obviously covering the league. You're close to the Raptors situation as well. I'm going to ask you a question first, though, about the Raptors in terms of them being the national product, the national brand, the team. A couple of years ago, winning a title. I asked Jack Armstrong this a couple of days ago. What do you think their title did for global basketball?
Well, it was enormous. I mean, you think about this. There's 30 teams in the NBA, but only one that's the only team in a country, and so they're a very unique team. Canada, Toronto specifically, is a very multicultural city, extremely diverse. As a result, and they always have a strong international component to their team. And you have, a general manager, president, international. So you have so many different points to this team that I think attract globally. And as a result, the Raptors have had a strong following globally. Winning the championship was incredible. And I'll tell you what, a lot of people, after the Raptors won the championship, I being in the NBA and being around all the teams and all the people and management, I was shocked at how many people genuinely were thrilled around the NBA that the Raptors won. And they were thrilled on how they did it. Because they didn't have, they had Kawhi Leonard, but they didn't have that 3 superstar team. They didn't have to go load up to do it. They didn't have a top 15 lottery pick on that team. They had undrafted players playing key roles. They had late picks or second-round picks, playing key roles. So I think the rest of the NBA said, hey, you know what? We can do this, right? This is realistic. It's not realistic to go get, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant, but it's realistic to maybe get one of those guys and build a team. And have a strong development. So, I think the reaction globally and within the NBA was tremendous, and this city just went over the top. The whole country went over the top. I mean, over half the country watched the NBA Finals here. So, as big as the game has grown in this country, the second phase, we don't even know. We're not even seeing yet. It's going to be unbelievable.
I remember watching a special on HBO, Real Sports, with the Raptors and when they went all the way. And the president of the Toronto Raptors, I believe, is it Masai Ujiri? Is that how you pronounce that name?
Masai Ujiri.
It's Masai, okay. Masai Ujiri. I mean, his story is amazing. He's an incredible businessman. Seems like a really, really good dude. What has he taught you through all this?
Well, simple thinking that if you go, a lot of people thought because you're Toronto, because you're country, you're not gonna go land that big name, right? It's just not gonna happen, which obviously was proved incorrect. But if that's the way it is, right? You got two choices. You can sit there and say, okay, you know what, we're gonna be okay, but we're never gonna be that good because we can't land anybody. So let's just live with it. Well, what Masai did was say, okay, you know what, we're not giving up on anything, but here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna have great scouting. We're going to have great development. So they got a Raptors 905, a G League team, literally, 15 minutes from where they play, their regular games at Scotiabank Arena. And again, you go through the undrafted players. You go through the late picks. You go and you start your development, right? Then you look at the coaches and the type of coaching they have. And so you make everything around your team something special, something that's going to grow, something that's going to build, something that's going to make everything around it better. And then when you do have that marquee player or get the big name, it's only going to get better, right? But you're not going to be live and die by it. And I think, last year was a great example when, the Raptors lost Kawhi Leonard, Danny Green. And everybody said the team's going to be dead. They're done. Well, the Raptors are one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference till the pandemic started. And, the bubble kind of affected everybody differently. So the Raptors, I thought, could have gone to the NBA Finals out of the East last year. But, again, the pandemic, they didn't handle it well, and the team just kind of imploded, losing to Boston in a Game 7. But now you go into this season, now you remember, so you lost Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green, and now you lose Serge Ibaka, Marcus Gasol. So people are just completely writing this team off. They struggled, started out 2-8, and since that point are one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. I think 14-7 since that point. And again, showing that, that they're developing and building from within. And so that's Masai Ujiri's doing. That's his work. He doesn't settle. He's raised the bar here. There's a certain expectation of how you're going to play. And even with his coaches, Nick Nurse already has a coaching tree. He's been here, 3 years as a head coach. This is his third season. He's got an NBA championship. One of his coaches is now the head coach of the Indiana Pacers, and another one of his coaches just got hired by the Minnesota Timberwolves last night. So the coaching tree is already spreading. So Masai Ujiri has put all this into place and deserves a great deal of credit.
Leo Rautins, our guest on the ML Sports Platter. Syracuse hoops great, of course, and now doing awesome work. TV analyst for TSN Sports, Sportsnet, NBA TV Canada, covering the Raptors and the NBA at Leo Rautins on Twitter. When you watch Steph Curry, what goes through your mind?
Just a phenomenal player. When people say he's not in an MVP conversation, they just don't know basketball. He's changed the game. I think you can give Steph a lot of credit, for the way, nobody used to come down and shoot from the logo in the NBA.
Yeah.
Right? You just didn't do that.
Leo, I got to tell you, I have him number 2 in the history of the game as far as impact behind Jordan. I do.
He's literally changed the game, right?
Yep.
So he's an influencer, and the way he plays, he's one of the greatest shooters to ever play. And it's much more than that. His feel for the game, his handle, his competitiveness. I remember when the Raptors played him in the championship. They had some injuries, but you were just terrified of him getting going. And there were a couple of games where he single-handedly kept them in and gave them a chance to win. And the Raptors, at that point, and still continue to be, are an elite defensive team. And even under those, playing under the conditions of versus an elite defensive team, he's able to do all these incredible things. So, I love Steph. I love watching him play, Obviously, he's got a strong connection to Toronto when his dad Dell played, and Steph used to be running around the court here shooting. Actually, he used to shoot jumpers with Andy before Raptor games.
Yeah,
so, strong connection there.
That's cool. How is Andy doing?
Andy's great. He finally decided to hang up the sneakers, and now he's just kind of testing the waters in a few different areas of business and sports, and so he's just kind of deciding which direction he might want to go in right now. But he's in a good place and enjoying life, living in Toronto.
I loved covering him. He was always at his locker. He was always super engaging. Gave great answers after the game, win or loss. And just grew every year into really one of the terrific, just like Brandon Trish. I mean, really terrific local. You grow up, you know what's going on, you know the pressure, you know what the crowds are like. You played there, right? I mean, it was all same thing. The bloodlines for both of them, and to do what they did and to have those complete careers, I think, is a real testament to guys like Andy and Brandon.
Yeah, I mean, it was they're some fun teams. I mean, the team with Brandon, Wesley, and Arenze.
09-10.
I mean, that team. I 100% firmly believe that if Arenze hadn't gotten hurt, they would have won a national championship. And I remember speaking with Mike Krzyzewski. About 6 months later, they won the championship, and he said, he goes, you know what? He goes, the only team we were worried about was Syracuse.
Yep.
And I don't know if we could have beaten Syracuse if they had Arenze. And I felt the same way. It was just so disheartening to see, one for him. That he had an unbelievable career to kind of end that way. But on the flip side, for that team, they had everything they needed to win.
Boy, they sure did. I mean, A.O., Rick Jackson, Andy, Brandon is a freshman, I believe. Scoop and Chris were sophomores. But in that Butler game, it was wild because Syracuse got a lot of open looks, and they just didn't make some in the beginning. And then you fast forward 2 years later, they lose to Ohio State. They got Sullinger in foul trouble in Boston. I was sitting there courtside covering that game, and they couldn't make layups. And then, Syracuse loses, and Ohio State goes to the Final Four. But I'm with you. I think what it comes down to is when you have a guy like A.O. out, it's the, I mean, you know more than me, obviously. The duration of that injury is what hurts you, right? I mean, as the game goes on, you feel the impact more and more.
Well, they had to get to that Butler game, and again, there was a lot of pressure without Arenze. And teams could, because Raptors had some bigs, but there was no other Arenze, and teams were able to really put a lot more pressure on the perimeter. They really focused in on Andy, focused in on Brandon, to try to make everything as difficult as possible because there was no release. Mm-hmm. So Butler did a great job of taking advantage of his absence. And like I said, it's unfortunate. That's sports; it happens, but. Like I said, I really thought they would have won it that year.
Leo Rautins, our guest. Couple more for you, Leo. I'll let you run. I know how busy you are. Curious to know, how important, and what it means to you. I mean, here you are, born in Toronto. You're covering the Raptors. you're right there, right? I mean, how comfortable, how on a daily basis do you feel? Just, man, this is really cool that I'm right here, right? Like where I was born.
Yeah, no, it really is amazing. I always dreamed that I'd play for an NBA team in Toronto. And, when I was coming out of Syracuse, there was that rumor that Ted Stepien, who owned the Cleveland Cavaliers, was going to buy a team in Toronto or move the Cavaliers to Toronto. And, he even ran into me one day and said, "You're going to be my guy. You're going to play for me." And so I always believed that that was going to happen. At some point in time, I'd be able to play here. And unfortunately, by the time it happened, I was done. My legs were finished, and so the next best thing is to do what I do, right? And it's been an incredible ride to be with this organization really from day one. So 1995, we did the first game, and 26 years later, I'm still doing the games, and had an opportunity when Isaiah Thomas was general manager. He offered me, and Brendan Malone, a former Syracuse guy, Mike Malone of the Denver Nuggets, his dad, he was the Raptors' first coach, and so Brendan and I knew each other well, and But there was an opportunity. Isaiah Thomas offered me an opportunity to be an assistant coach with the team as well. So it's just been a great relationship, a great opportunity, and to be in my hometown where I grew up and to see where the game has come from. This game being completely a hockey country and nobody caring anything about basketball. To becoming one of the great basketball cities in the NBA, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I tell you what, you bring up Steppy in there, and I just got done reading the book called The Cap by Josh Mendelson. It was so good, Leo. Have you read it?
No, I haven't.
It's phenomenal. It's how Larry Fleischer and David Stern built the modern NBA with all the stuff in the early '80s, and he's in it a ton, obviously, and all the owners, of course, across the board in the fight for the players. And the shares and TV money, and it's a spectacular book if you get a chance.
I'm sure it is. Well, I know a lot of the players that you're speaking of, and I'm familiar with a lot of the stories and how a lot of things went down, and the whole ABA, NBA, and just the relationship. So I'm sure it's an incredible book, and I'll have to take a look at it. But it's funny because the longer you're around this league, you become kind of a part of all the stuff that's happening, and your relationships with people go back a long way, and you have an insight and a perspective that's very unique, right? And so it's something that I cherish every day. It's pretty cool to be in something as big as the NBA. I mean, talking $1 billion business, and to be a part of the whole thing in your hometown is amazing.
People get caught up in eras, like the LeBron versus Michael stuff. And, I grew up in the 90s. I loved the NBA, the triple header on NBC. I'm not as infatuated with it today. I like the stars. I got into it a few years back, and then I kind of went away a little bit. Jordan retired. I didn't stick with it as much. Through the years, I know you're covering the game now, so it's different, but from an entertainment standpoint, from a fan standpoint, do you prefer certain times over others, Leo, or don't you pay attention to that stuff?
You do. I mean, I don't like comparing eras and players of different eras. Like I said, to me, Michael Jordan's the greatest player to ever live. But Wayne Embry, who's just a legacy and a legend and an icon. Who's a consultant with the Toronto Raptors, he'll tell you that Oscar Robertson's the greatest player ever lived. Well, I can't have that argument, right? Because I don't have a perspective on that. And then people today are going to say it's LeBron, and a lot of those people, believe it or not, have never even seen Michael play, aside from that, feature that was on earlier in the year or last year. So it's very unique. So I don't like comparing eras. I think they're all different. They're all unique, but ultimately the game is about entertainment, right? It's ratings. It's and how the game is watched today is very different, right? A lot of people don't sit down and watch the triple headers or the 6 games in a day. Your phone, your tablet, is a large part of how people consume the NBA. They consume in snippets. They consume in so many different ways versus sitting down in the old days like we used to. So the game is about entertainment. It's about giving people access. It's about giving people additional information, different ways of taking it all in, more access, all of that, right? And so the NBA has always stayed ahead. They've always been a leader in all these different areas and the way to sell and manage and move a game. So, I don't necessarily like all aspects of today's game, but it is entertaining. You're seeing the greatest athletes, arguably, of any sport. And there's, it's fun, right? The games are fun. The games are exciting. Crowds are, obviously right now we don't have crowds, but, generally the arenas are packed, and so forth. So I just enjoy it. I kind of go with the flow, right? Like I said, the game has evolved, but, I think we as viewers or we as people that like the game have to evolve too, because it's not going to go backwards. It's only going to keep going in the directions it's going in.
Yeah, final thing for you here. I just wanted to quickly touch on your playing career. I mean, you're at Minnesota. Then you go to Syracuse. Really at the start of, Boom, right? I mean, the Carrier Dome. This big arena, and the Big East starts taking off shortly after. Was all that intimidating at first?
Not at all. I mean, actually, none of it was in the picture. I was at Minnesota. I was in the Big Ten. They had one of the top arenas in the country, Williams Arena. Big Ten was the conference, yeah. Magic Johnson, all these guys. And so when I transferred to Syracuse, there was no Big East. There was no Carrier Dome. And by the time I'm playing, after my redshirt year, the next year, there's a Carrier Dome and there's a Big East.
Right, there you go. That's so crazy, right?
Yeah, I mean, like all of a sudden, I went to Syracuse because I loved the program. I wanted to go to Newhouse because academics are important to me. It was relatively close to Toronto, 4-hour drive.
Sure.
So those were all my reasons for going there. And next thing you know, you have a whole bunch of other reasons that make it spectacular. And again, so it wasn't pressure. It wasn't anything like that. It was just fun, to be a part of, what became the hottest conference in the country. And it was brilliant, right? You have all these major media markets and places like Syracuse where you're getting 30,000 people in a game. It was unique, and the television coverage was unbelievable. Then you finally move into Madison Square Garden for the Big East. Like I said, that's it, right? You can't get any bigger than that. So it was an incredible experience, and again, the cool part about it was an incredible experience that I didn't plan on. I didn't anticipate. It just worked out that way, and those are the best scenarios.
Yeah, because, 78-79 Minnesota, and that later on, just after that year at Minnesota, literally late May was the Big East formation of that conference pretty much during that off year of the redshirt, and then all of a sudden, boom, and all that stuff gets added on to your career. It's amazing.
When I visited Syracuse, there was a hole. There was a hole where Archibald Stadium was,
Yeah, right.
And then when I'm playing my first game at Syracuse, we're in this crazy dome.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, and it was amazing because, like I said, if now players go to Syracuse because of the dome, or when the conference was hot. They were getting, they're getting the Colemans, and they were getting the Billy Owens and the Pearl Washingtons. Like I said, I went there for none of those reasons, and it turned out being amazing.
What's the one thing in closing that, from a basketball perspective, the one thing that you learned from Jim Boeheim through the years that you've kept really close to you, that you use, think about, whatever the case may be?
I thought Jim was great at, you had to work your way through to establish yourself with him. But once you did, he trusted you, and he gave you confidence. And I know that, when that makes a big difference for a player, especially in college ball. I mean, with schools over-recruit. They'll get 5 guys at one position. Your players are looking over their shoulder every time they put on their uniform, like who's going to take my spot, the whole bit. And it wasn't like that with Coach. Practices were fun. Like, I loved practice. We ran. We got up and down the floor. We ran. He didn't overcoach you. He wasn't like every little thing all the time. He let you play. And like I said, it gave you confidence. And I know when I was coaching Canada, my practices were fun. They were high energy. They were fun. We didn't go too long. We didn't waste time on stuff. And some of that was Coach, right? I gave players trust and confidence. I know how I felt. Isaiah Thomas once said, never forget how you felt as a player. That's your best asset. And so I remember how I felt, playing, in certain situations, and for Jim Boeheim. And, I had a situation where, we really didn't have a point guard. And we got this guy and this guy and this guy, and, I'm trying, every one of these guys is looking over their shoulder. Finally, I grabbed one of our guys and said, look, that's it. No more. You're my point guard. Okay? Don't worry about anybody else I bring in here. Don't worry about you are my point guard. We're going to do this together. We're going to learn this together. All right? You're going to make mistakes, but if you stay with me and you follow me, I said we're going to do this together, and you're going to grow into this position. And he did, and he ended up being a great player. But I think Jim Boeheim's influence helped me make that decision. That he just needed to know that just go play. You don't need to worry anymore. This is your spot, right? You got it. And so I think I've been very blessed. I've played for some great coaches, and I've been around some great people in my basketball life. And Jim Boeheim certainly was a part of that and left some very strong impressions.
Raptors TV analyst, TSN Sports, Sportsnet, NBA TV Canada, covers the NBA across the board as well. Kid from Keele Street, according to the Twitter profile, it's Leo Rautins. What a career at Syracuse as well. At Leo Rautins. Make sure you give him a follow on Twitter. Leo, this was amazing. So great to catch up with you. Continued success, and hopefully not too long from now I'll be able to run into you again inside the White Roof for a ball game, man.
We'll see. I'd like to see the new dome and see what it looks like, and get back in connection with some folks. So one day we'll hope that'll happen sooner than later.
The ML Sports Platter is all over the major platforms as a part of the Brawl Network. Download, subscribe, leave feedback, and a 5-star review. Spotify, Google Play, Apple, Stitcher, Deezer, and anywhere else you get your podcasts on your smartphone device. We're presented by our great friends over at Camillus Golf Club, Hides of Liverpool, and Liverpool Physical Therapy. LiverpoolPhysicalTherapy.com for more information. Remember, if you're looking for that rehab stint, maybe the rotator cuff or the ACL, whatever the case may be, or just those daily little pains that we get as we get older, don't forget, there's no doctor prescription necessary for the first 10 physical therapy visits in New York State. Liverpool Physical Therapy, a proud ML Sports Platter sponsor, and a tip of the cap thank you as well to the Vince Aguirre Consulting Group and Welch & Company Jewelers. Log on to welchjewelers.com. Shop the showcase today. Engagement rings, wedding rings, you name it. Welch & Company Jewelers, welchjewelers.com. Jewelry store online is terrific. Go shop the showcase today. Daniel, Luce, and the gang doing an awesome job. welchjewelers.com. What a great interview with Leo Rautins. I've been looking forward to it for quite a while. At Leo Rautins on Twitter, and make sure you catch all his coverage of Raptors and NBA basketball. I'm Mike Lindsley on Twitter, at Mike L Sports. Be on the lookout for my 9-minute with Mike Lindsley segments and 1-minute ML Sports takes all over Twitter, Facebook, IGTV, YouTube, and TikTok. As I always tell you, enjoy the games.